Hi, in this video I'm going to compare two fabrics in the Western Mountaineering sleeping bag family. The first is the ExtremeLite fabric on this ExtremeLite sleeping bag. The second is the Microfiber XP fabric on this Antelope sleeping bag. I'm going to give you a little comparison of the weights, the differences, the feels, the performance, and how waterproof or not they are at the end of the video. Stay tuned. So how do you choose between the ExtremeLite fabric and the Microfiber XP fabric in the Western Mountaineering family of sleeping bags? Well, that's actually pretty tough because on my channel, quite a few people ask about the difference, and it's kind of hard to quantify in feeling and performance, but what I'm going to do is give you a few ideas of the experiences I've had and how I choose the difference. So the very first thing that you're going to want to look at is the fabric weight. The ExtremeLite series fabric, as I'm reading this, is 0.74 ounces per square yard or 22.9 grams per square meter. Now that doesn't mean a lot until you compare it to the Microfiber XP fabric. That stuff is 1.35 ounces per square yard or 41.9 grams per square meter. That is an 83% increase in the weight of the fabric between this sleeping bag and this sleeping bag. It is not insubstantial. Now, why do you think that is? Well, the whole theory of the ExtremeLite is you've got a fabric that is as light as possible while still being quite durable. The microfiber is a definite step up, being 83% heavier. It's going to be much tougher and more weather resistant. However, neither of these fabrics is designed to, say, withstand direct rain. A little bit of condensation, sure, but if you're really out in the rain, you're toast with either of these fabrics. In fact, the Gore windstopper I'm going to do in another video can't even handle that either. But the theory is that they have a thing called hydrostatic head. And this fabric can handle 1,200 millimeters of hydrostatic head. Now, compare that to the microfiber, that's 2,000. So that's, again, almost about 80% better. And what hydrostatic head means is how much vapor pressure the fabric can handle before it begins to soak out. Now, water resistance in a down bag is a big deal, but consider this. If you think you're going to be in a drenched place where you're going to get totally soaked, reconsider not using down bags and instead look at synthetic bags. I know, oh, synthetic bags are evil and down is the best, but if you really think your bag might get seriously soaked, or you're going to an extreme location like, oh, I'd say the Arctic, where everything's going to get wet, a synthetic bag might be a better choice. Now, the next consideration between these two fabrics is packability. Now, why would I say that's a big consideration? Well, the ExtremeLite bag here, that's about a 25-degree bag, can pack down into an 8-liter bag with no problem. I'll fluff that out, and it's easy to get in there. The microfiber, that takes a much more substantial bag. Now, granted, this is a 25 to 30-degree bag, and the Antelope is a 5-degree bag. But you can see just how much bigger the bag is that you have to carry this thing through. So that is a big difference. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in and give you a little bit of audio and just tell you about the feel of the fabric and show you a couple things that I notice about them. Here we go. So now you can see the difference in the fabric here. You can see the ripstop lines here, and it does actually quite well. I've snagged this quite a few times, but let me find the tear that I finally put in this. Now, mind you, I've used this bag for 20 years, or give or take. Oh, where is it? Somewhere here. Oh, yep. There's one little snag. Now, your primary cause of snags is going to be your zipper. Now, even though their design is really good, the zipper snag right there, that is the first snag I had in my bag. And then another one, I snagged it. And this is because, well, I wasn't necessarily not being careful, but you can see the patch here that I put on this guy, just because I actually got a real hole in it. Now, granted, it was very small, but that is a consideration. The zipper design in these sleeping bags is really good, assuming it doesn't keep falling over, because in the zipper, there is a little bit of stiffness to it, and there is a little bit of stiffening tape on this side. There isn't any real stiffening tape on the top, so that is, I would say, the one downside. Now, I don't know why they don't put some sort of stiffener here, but you can, when you're zipping it up, you get that fabric snagged in there, and it can be a problem. So it's something to be mindful and careful about. Now, let's compare that to the microfiber fabric. And let's see, let me get the zipper up so you can see it. And you can see the microfiber fabric here is actually quite a different characteristic. When I rub it in my fingers, it feels silky, but it feels much stronger. Of course, it's 83% stronger and thicker. So when I pull it widthwise, you don't really see any pull. And when I pull it lengthwise, there's a tiny bit of pull, but not really that much. It's more the poofiness of the fabric. Now along the zipper, let me zoom out. Along the zipper here, you can see that I don't really have any snag marks yet, but I don't use this bag nearly as much simply because it's way too warm for me. So you can see all along here, I don't have any snag marks or damage. Now, in the head area, you can see when I pull it here, I pull it here, again, it feels light and delicate, but it handles quite well. And compare that against that's the microfiber, and compare that against the ExtremeLite fabric. Again, I mean, perfectly strong, but if you snag and pull this, you are going to tear it. Now, this fabric, of course, is much tougher. The microfiber is much tougher than the ExtremeLite, but there are some other considerations I'm going to talk about now, too. Now, when people ask me, what should I choose, the ExtremeLite fabric or the microfiber fabric, really what you're choosing is the sleeping bag. Now, here's the chart from Western Mountaineering. I'll leave a link below for your convenience. But the ExtremeLite series goes from like a 45-degree Everlite kind of quilty thing down to a 10-degree bag like the VersaLite. I'll put a link below there. The microfiber bags start at 35 and they go all the way to minus 25 degrees. So the ExtremeLite bag is really meant for a 3-season bag. It's summer, winter, or not winter, sorry, summer, spring, and fall. I have used this bag in the winter down to 5 degrees. It was chilly. The fabric handled just fine. It was very frosty in the morning, but that was okay. And I'll show you the waterproof resistance in a moment. I've used this bag, the Antelope in Greenland, again to minus 25, even though the bag's only rated to 5 degrees. It was chilly again, but I survived. But you can see the difference between these two fabrics. They both feel very nice and silky, but this fabric in the Microfiber XP is much, much heavier than the ExtremeLite. So now what I'm going to do is do a waterproofing comparison test where I'm actually going to pour water on the fabric and show you just how quickly it pours off, beads up, or absorbs, knowing that this bag has almost 20 years on it. This bag is about 15, 16 years on it. So just to give you an idea of the two different fabrics. Okay, the first test that I'm going to do is the ExtremeLite fabric. You can see here that it is perfectly dry. I have a standard glass of water. I've got it over my bowl. And what I'm going to do is just create a little bit of a channel so the water flows so you can see how fast or not fast the water gets wicked up. Okay, so the water pours off pretty well, but as I touch the fabric, I can feel moisture on it. It doesn't do too badly. I'm rubbing it. I don't feel too much water, but you can start to see the absorption happens here pretty quick when there's a little bit of contact time. So it really doesn't take too much for this ExtremeLite fabric to get completely wet. There we go. Now, of course, this is a crazy downpour. If you're into this kind of downpour, you're going to be in for a soaking. But you can see here, after I brush the bag off, I can feel it's moist. And the cloth is definitely wet. It's not really all that waterproof at all. You can see the darkening here. And I'm sure the down inside, I could feel it's a tiny bit moist. So it doesn't take too much water to get this guy wet. So if you think you're going to be in super wet conditions, the ExtremeLite may not be the fabric for you. Now I'm going to compare this to the Microfiber XP and see how it performs. All right, here we have a Western Mountaineering microfiber bag. This is the Antelope. And what I'm going to do is the same sort of test. I'm going to try and tilt this over and create a channel so it's not on the sewing. That's not really a fair test. And I'm simply going to begin pouring water over it and just see what happens. Okay. I'll brush it off. Now I can feel the fabric. It turned pretty dark. It's moist, but I feel the fabric is not as wet, so let me do a little more water pouring here. There we go. So I'll brush the water off, and I have gotten this bag wet before, so this isn't a surprise. So you can see the darkening in the fabric here too. So between the two, this fabric can resist a lot more water pressure, but direct water on the fabric, you're going to get wet either way. So you definitely want to avoid, whether it's the ExtremeLite fabric or the microfiber fabric, you do not want direct water on there because both bags got wet. Quite handy, there's no surprise there. Direct water is a problem with this type of fabric. The next test I'm going to do is misting water repellency. This is going to simulate fog, dew sort of thing. Of course, it's still direct water application rather than water vapor in the air, but it'll at least give you an idea of, does the water bead up, does it quickly soak in, and is there any real difference between the fabrics? The next test we're going to do is the mister bottle test. So we're just going to spray a little bit of water in here and see what happens. You can see, you can see that the bags both get a little bit moist just with that. Now again, this is direct pressure rather than fog. So let me towel these off without pressing the water into the down. And how do we do? Well, you can see both fabrics darkened up, indicating that this one, the microfiber, got wet and the ExtremeLite got wet. So is there any real good value between the two fabrics with a misting water bottle? Doesn't look like it. And the last test I'm going to do is the wind pressure test. This isn't terribly scientific, but I'll show you a huge difference, at least in my mind, is when I put the fabric on my mouth and blow on it, I can feel some air going through this fabric. So what I'm doing is I'm putting my mouth on there, and I can feel air going through the fabric pretty well, and that's the ExtremeLite fabric. Compare this to the Microlite XP fabric, same thing. Yeah, no, getting lightheaded. trying to blow air through this fabric, it's virtually resistant to me doing that all. Let me do this again. And I can definitely feel air going through that fabric compared to this again. Yeah, there's a huge difference between the ExtremeLite fabric and the Microfiber fabric. I can feel air from my mouth going in through the fabric, but in the Microfiber fabric, I can feel it, but it is so much slower. It's almost like I'm breathing into something completely air resistant. So there you go. You've got a couple of different comparisons between the ExtremeLite fabric and the Microfiber XP fabric in the Western Mountaineering sleeping bag series. Just to recap, the ExtremeLite fabric is super crazy light, like 83% lighter than the Microfiber fabric, but that means that you're sacrificing durability and some water resistance. The Microfiber fabric has more water repellency than the ExtremeLite, but you know, it's kind of okay. This particular fabric, the Microfiber, is much more tear resistant. That doesn't mean it won't tear, but when I've snagged the zipper on the Microfiber fabric, I never have a problem. I've got 20 years on this bag, so when I snag it, I got to be extra careful. It doesn't snag often, but that's a thing. So there you go. That is the comparison between the ExtremeLite fabric and the Microfiber fabric. It is more a question of what conditions are you going to be in to choose between these two fabrics, rather than, oh, look, get the same sleeping bag. If you're looking at the same rating sleeping bag, you have to decide, do I want compressibility and lightness, or do I want a little bit better durability and a bit better weatherproofing? That's the whole thing about this. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Linsdau. I'm a polar explorer and professional adventurer. Please like and comment on the video and subscribe to the channel if you found it helpful. Thank you very much and enjoy your travels.